Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Moed Katan daf Beis, we are going to start the beginning of the Masechta. Mashkin beis hashlochim b'moed u'b'shvius. A person is allowed to water a beis hashlochim on Chol HaMoed as well as Shemitah. What is a beis hashlochim? So Rashi tells us it's a sadishi omedis bahar. It's a field that's in a mountainous region. V'sarach lahashkos hatomid mashkin oisa afil b'chol shemoed, because it constantly needs this extra attention that rainwater isn't sufficient, like a beis habal. So therefore, because of that, we're allowed to water in Chol Moed. Hefsid gadol im enu mashkosa, because since it needs to be watered, if you wouldn't water it, it's going to cause a tremendous financial loss. So even though the person is not to do malacha on Chol HaMoed, however, the Chachamim do allow you to do so in the event that it will cause a major loss. Skipping a few lines in Rashi. The Chachamim were given the authority to decide what is and what is not allowed to be done on Chol Moed. Says Rashi, if it's a financial loss, if you don't do it, for example, our Mishnah, so we allow this to be done. Now, continuing the Mishnah, what does that mean? So it says Rashi, that it's just beginning, the water is flowing out, that it has not actually established itself that it's flowing out well, as opposed to mine shelo yatsa batchil, which means it's not an original source of water flowing out, which means that it normally is flowing out pretty well. It's been flowing out, as Rashi says, mizman meruba. It doesn't make any difference. Even that type of field you're allowed to water because it's a beis hashlochim, because it needs rainwater. It needs water, rather. And if you don't water it, so therefore it's going to end up causing a hesen, which is also a davar aved, a loss. Fine. However, aval ein mashkin lo mimeg shamim lo mimeg hakiloin. But a person is not allowed to wash or water a mei geshamim, a field in which produces a lot of growth through rainwater, or a mekiloin, which also is something that it receives a lot of water from this source. Therefore, you don't really need to water it. The ein oisin ugyos ligafanim, person is not allowed to dig holes for the sake of grapevines. Rashi says, there's an issue of having excessive energy and work that's being done on Chol Moed, and that's the reason why you can't do it. But a person is not allowed to make an irrigation channel initially on Chol HaMoed as well as Ubashvias. The Chacham disagree, and we'll obviously understand this machlokas, whether you can make this irrigation channel for its very first time on Chol HaMoed or on Shvias. So Masat Maskines Hamakukolis, a person could literally fix up things that are ruined. But Moed, for example, if there's holes in the ground, which we're going to end up seeing, this was an opportune time, we'll see why, that we would hire people to actually do a lot of the road work, especially that in the winter months you have these big potholes. So therefore, during, let's say, Chol HaMoed Pesach is a good opportune time to get that fixed. As we said, to fix up the roads, the town square, yes, mikvos hamayim, as well as places for people to immerse, and all the public works, all the needs of the rabbim, you can take care of on Chol HaMoed, and you can also make markers or put lime and pitch by the place where there are cemeteries. This way, a Kohen will not become tameh there. And you go also out regarding kilayim, as is brought down Masechtas Shkalim, that discusses this, because that is actually the time in which people will be planting in general again, that therefore we want to allow people to go out and take care of that then. So, Fret the Gemara. Hashdi Shloimer. mimayin shiatza b'tchila. When it comes to a mayin shiatza b'tchila, which is talking about that it's the very, very first time, which means it's not a channel, a water area which is flowing well. So even though we allow you to do this, the asi lin puli mashkin, even though it's a possibility that it's going to cause the earth to cave in through this water, says Rashi, karka seviva shedain lo hechzika darka, because it hasn't established its flow well of water. Nonetheless, we still allow you to do it, even though it could cause more problems. So why does the Mishnah even need to mention when it comes to mayin shel yatsa b'tchila? Because since it's already has this way, this path, so it's not going to cause the earth to be destroyed, which is going to cause you a lot more extra work to fix up. So certainly one should be allowed to water that, because again, there's smaller potential of that being an issue of you doing extra work. So Amri Itzrach, we need both of those cases. Kitana mayin shiatza b'tchila. Because if the Tana only mentioned the mayin shiatza b'tchila, again referring to a new well, havamina hachahu de beis hashlachim in beis habaloi. Maybe the only time we would make a distinction is when it comes to that we would say you can't do this by a beis habal. What's a beis habal? Says Rashi, sadahu be'emek. It's in, let's say, a valley. You don't really need to water it so much. It's not going to cause any real loss if you don't water it. So Beis Habal, there's certainly less of a reason to matter you to water it on Chol HaMoed. So maybe the only time we'll make a distinction between the Beis HaShlach and Beis Habal is dafka when it comes to a mayin shiatza b'tchila, by a new well. Mishav Daslan Pule. If let's say it's already well established, Delos and Pule, so Ema feel Beis Habal Nami. So you would think maybe a Beis Habal, you could even water Beis Habal. That's why Kamash Shmuel, Loshna Mayin Shiatza B'tchila, Loshna Mayin Shlo Yatza B'tchila, Beis HaShlachim in Beis Habal Lo. And therefore it's coming to show that any type of Beis HaShlachim is allowed, however, any type of Beis Habal is not allowed. And therefore that's why we needed to mention this, that the dafka by Beis HaShlachim is when we mention both situations. So Maimash Nahai Beis HaShlachim. How do we know that the proper language, when we're talking in our Mishnah about a Beis HaShlachim, that Lishna de Sachusa, that's a language of like sprouting forth. So the pasuk says in the Bar V'yata and you, Oyev V'yageya, are going to be Oyev V'yageya, and this is talking about a Molek who attacked us while we were weak and worried. Mitargaminon V'at Mashalhe Velohi, that we were thirsty. How do you know that Beis Habal is like a language of being like satiated or satisfied? The pasuk says in Yishai, Yival bochor besua matargaminan ari kama demi taisev ulam im betuata yis yavnun bigavich banayich. Okay. So that comes to again teach us this element of comfort and being satiated. So we actually can derive these different languages to teach us what each type of field is. So man tana de have said in harvacha lo. Now this Tana of our Mishnah is saying that only thing that's allowed to be done is to prevent a hefsid, to prevent some type of monetary loss. However, when it comes to harvacha, making things better, that's not allowed. Why? How do we see that it's not allowed? Says Rashi, Gun Beis Habal. El harvacha the milsel shavi aple charpe. So the only reason why you're going to water the Beis Habal is not because if you didn't do it, there's going to be the whole field's going to be destroyed. No, the field will be fine if you didn't do it. But by doing it, you're actually improving it. So l'chayra, the fact that the mission doesn't allow Beis Habal is come to show that the only thing that's allowed on Chol Moed is dafkasin, which is going to cause a monetary loss or davar avid, some type of hefsid. Mashein kein harvacha. So who is this Tana like of our Mishnah? I feel b'makam seda that even in a situation of a loss, mitrach namilu tarchinon, we're not going to want you to exert over energy. Says Rashi, How do we see that? Tektani Masnisin, our Mishnah says of a lo shamim, that not rain, right? Like for example, taking water from a ditch with a pail. Mishum de isbe tircha. So taking water from a ditch with a pail, that's mega shamim. So you're not allowed to do that either. So why not? The answer is because it's a tircha yitzera. We don't want you to be engaged in overwork. So Rav Huna, Rebbe Lezer ben Yaakov. How do we see that? Did not Rebbe Lezer ben Yaakov Omer Moishchen Samayim Ilon Ilon, that a person is allowed to bring water and have it go from one tree to the next tree. But you're not allowed to water the entire field. Says Rashi, B'chol shemoyed. This is talking about Daka Chol Moed. Im yesh mayim tachas ilon echad. Let's say you have water that's by one tree. Oisin derech Katan me'ilon ilon. You can make this small pathway so the water should go from that tree to another tree. Kedei sheyimshechu hamayim ilon zel ilon acher. That is allowed, but you're not allowed to water the entire field. And Rashi is bebeis habal kamayri. We're talking about a beis habal, that's not allowed. So at least to protect it and save a tree, that's allowed. However, just to water the entire beis habal, that's not allowed, which again is clearly like the shita of our Mishnah. Okay, fine. At least we can see from him that we don't allow harvacha, we don't allow beis habal to be watered. But tircha b'makam sedemi shaman. How do we find this other concept that by engaging in extra tircha, even in case of a pseida, that is not allowed? We don't see him saying that. Elo omer papa hamani Rabbi Huda. Rather, it's a different time. It's Rabbi Huda. There's a sign here. Mayin hayotz b'chila. When it comes to this water in which you would be doing this and watering it for the very first time, mashkin mimenu afil stay beis habal. Dibra Meir. Our Meir has a very lenient opinion, and he says that even beis habal you're allowed to do, which again is not like our Mishnah. Yehuda Omer no. And mashkin el stay beis hashlachim shicharva. You're only allowed to water a beis hashlachim that is dried up. Now that's an important concept that we add in here. Now the fact is, he clearly excludes a beis habal, which is like our Mishnah. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah omer lokach v'lokach, which is a tremendous stringency. He says not this and not this, which is mashma. Not only can you not water on Chol HaMoed a beis habal, but not even a beis hashlachin. So yes, okay, now Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said further regarding this, well, Yafan Adam Amasamayim, a person is not allowed to remove a canal, the Yashgil Ginaso, in order for it to be able to water a garden or chorvato, or it's something which is dilapidated, b'chol shemoid. So my charva, what does it mean, charva? What is that referring to? Ilay macharva mamish, that it's completely destroyed, says Rashi, Shenasa bor, Lumli Mashkila, he, Ta'ain Tekanal Olam. Lumli the Mashkila. Well, why is it mentioned about watering it? It has bigger problems. It's completely destroyed. Watering it, l'char, is not going to do anything. So when it says it was destroyed, or charva, dried up, or destroyed, doesn't mean completely. So Omer Abaye means shecharva memayin zeh. That means that it was dried up from the old water source. The original old water source is dried up, yotzol amayin acher, and you want to be able to bring new water source to it. That's what it's referring to. So in that situation, because there's no water source to be able to help you with this, because it was all dried up, so then you can use the new one. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah he says not this and not this. Lo shenachar v'ma'ayna, v'lo shena lochar v'ma'ayna. Ma'ayin shiyotza b'tchila lo. He says that it's not allowed to be done at all. My dilmad kanoi kama Rabbi Huda. So we're saying that our Mishnah is Rabbi Huda, but maybe the only time Rabbi Huda says this is beis hashlachim in beis habal lo. Maybe the only time he says this is el ma'ayin shiyotza b'tchila. Maybe it's only talking about this very first time. It does not have, again, this established flow of water. So why is he does he make this distinction that you cannot use this for a base habal, as we continue base and base, as we saw in the beginning of the Amud, is because dimasil and pule, because it may fall apart. However, maybe Rabbi Yehuda allows a base habal in a situation where it's a mine shlo yatsa b'tchila. Where it says no, im kain mastis in a man, tirmi el Rabbi Yehuda. Doesn't make any difference. So basically, we're stuck. We have no other way of being able to interpret our Mishnah except to say that it must be like the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. And the reason why it mentions this case of Mayin Shiatza B'Tchila, that's the original time, is to show the strength of Rabbi Meir. A few stay habal, that he's so lenient that even when it comes to that, you're allowed to water it, even though it is a stay habal, which again is not like the sheet of our Mishnah. Let's see question 7. Mashkin beis hashlachim b'moed bein b'mayin shiatza b'tchila b'mayin shloyatza b'tchila. Mahir harabusa. What is the addition shel mayin shiatza b'tchila? The fact that it says it shiatza b'tchila. U'mahir harabusa shel mayin shloyatza b'tchila. So Ma'ayin Shiatza B'Tchila is coming to tell us that we're not Chayish Dilma Nafil HaKarka. A Seviva, that the earth is going to fall down. The Osel V'Tarach Tirch Yiseh, you're going to have to fix it up. And Ma'ayin Shiloyatza B'Tchila is coming to tell you that even with that, the only thing we allow is Beis HaShlachim, but not Beis Habal. So that's what it's coming to tell us. It's a Chiddush on both sides. That was question 7. Okay, weiter. So the Gemara says, new piece, Itmar. So we learn like this. Hamenachesh, a person who is weeding, says Rashi, Toilesh atzavim, one who detaches grass, growing which are bad, like weeds. Mitayich hatoivim, v'chi akrilhu samchi hanitvei. By you taking out the bad weeds, it causes everything to grow. That's menachesh. V'mashke mayim lizroyim, person who waters for trees or for vegetation, says Rashi, shezorik mayim beikri hatzavim, that you throw water on like the roots of grass. If you do it b'Shabbos, mishum mai masrinan bei. Obviously, this is not allowed to be done. So the question is, what type of warning are we supposed to give if someone does this? So let's look at Rashi. Devadi kaitzer leichashvinan. This is not considered to be like harvesting. Shenim eschavin lital hatzavim. Even though you're ripping out the weeds, you don't have kavana to take out the grass. El lasakin etzavim hatayvim shebasada. Your real intention is to fix everything else. So we wouldn't want to say that it's a violation l'chayv katsira, of harvesting. So what is the hasra? What hasra do you give? So we have a machlokas. Rabbi Omer mishum chayrish. One says it's the hasra you give is plowing. Rabbi Yosef Omer mishum zareya. It's for like planting, because you're causing things to grow. So Rabbi Kavase didi mastabra. So Rabbi says it sounds more logical like me, that it's chayrish. Why? Because my darka shel chayrish, when it comes to plowing, refuye ara, it's coming to, says Rashi, l'rachech, to soften up the ground. That's what you're trying to do. So hainami marfuye ara. It's also, that's what he's trying to do. You're trying to soften up the ground by removing these weeds. So no, it makes more logical sense that it has to do with planting. When you seed or plant, let's smuchi peira, it's in order for fruits and vegetation to flourish. So achanami matzmach peira. That's what you're trying to do over here as well. Okay, so Amalei Abayel Rab Ladidach Kasha Rav Yosef Rav Yosef Kasha Ladidach Kasha. According to you, it's a Kasha Mishum Chayrish in Mishum Zarei Lo. Rav Yosef Kasha Mishum Zarei in Mishum Chayrish Lo. It kind of sounds like each of them have these different qualities. V'chitei Makol Heichadi Ika Tarti. If you have these two different qualities, if it's Chayrish and Zarei Lo Machayev, El Chada, you're only going to be Chayev for one. Yomi Rav Kahana says Zaymer, a person who is pruning on Shabbos, v'sarch eitzim, and they need the wood, so they're pruning the branches and ripping them off, but they're doing it for firewood, let's say. So chayiv shtayim, achas mishum noitea, v'achas mishum kaitzer, kasha. So the question basically is that you could say they're both true. So why are you excluding? Okay. Eisvi Rav Yosef Rabbi. So Rav Yosef asked a question to Rabbi. According to you, Rabbi, you said the issue is because of chayrish, but hamanachesh, a person who is weeding, a person who's covering up, says Rashi, shemachasa says Royim be'offer, you're covering up the seeds with earth, l'kilayim loike. So you're going to get malchus because of the prohibitions. Rashi says a little scissor kilayim. Rabbi Kiva Omer afa mekayim. Even if someone's mekayim, what does that mean? Shiroya kilayim zerua v'enu mavatalei. Interesting. If you actually see kilayim, apparently you don't even do anything, and you're not mavatalei, you're also going to be chayim, which of course needs work. What that means. Now, bishul midididi, it's good according to me. Diamina mishum zareya, the whole notion of weeding is comparable to zeret, like planting. Hainu de'asiri zriya b'kilayim. That's why he mentions Zaria, because we know that one is not allowed to plant kilayim. If it's plowing, there's no concept of chayrish when it comes to the violation of kilayim. You're not allowed to plant it. You can't plant wheat, barley, grape seeds together. It has nothing to do with plowing, so it's hard to really understand how could it be if a person is menachesh. If menachesh is just simply chayrish, so then you shouldn't be chayiv. This doesn't make sense. That says that you're going to be like it for kilayim. So mishum mekayim, and the reason why you're chayiv malchus is because you're a mekayim, because you kept it. What do you mean? If you read the seifa, obviously that's not what the Reish is talking about, because it's really the same thing. Morris is right. Actually, the way you're supposed to read this entire statement is Rabbi Kiva, Matan Karmer. And like Rav Shimon often does, over here Rabbi Kiva is a matam. Matam hamanachesh hamachape b'kilayim loike mishum mekayim. The reason why normally when it comes to weeding, you would think you shouldn't be chayiv kilayim because weeding is like chayrish, is like plowing. However, in this situation, you're going to be chayiv because of mekayim. Should be kiva omer afa mekayim. So my time to Kiva, why would you be chayiv just allowing it to stay? Well, chayiv didn't do anything. Deciding because the pasuk says as follows: Sadchol tizra kilayim ainly ela zoreya. I only know if you physically went and planted mekayim and I. And how do we know that even if you just kept it there? Talmud Leimer kilayim sadchalo. The fact that it says kilayim sadcha lo. It says Rashi, tizra kilayim garin b'darshan. We remove certain letters and we darshan. Lo kilayim lo yehi kilayim. There should not be kilayim in your field. Which means that if you have it there, you have to be mavatal it. And therefore, if you're not mavatal it, you're going to be chayiv. Okay. Tanan. Mashkin beis hashlachin b'moed b'shvius. So let's go back to our original Mishnah that says a person is allowed to water this beis hashlachin field, which needs water on Chol HaMoed and on Shemitah. Now, Bishul Moed, I can understand this whole notion by Chol HaMoed Mishum Tirchahu. However, Makam say the Sharu Rabbanan, as Rashi says, Mishum Hachi Sharu do Asr B'Shum Malacha El Mishum Tircha. You're not really doing any malacha over here. It's just an element of tircha, and therefore the Rabbanan are mekel because of a pseida. So therefore they're lenient. Sharabanan el shvius bein l'man di'aymer mishum zarei bein l'man di'aymer mishum chayrish. Whether you hold of zarei or chayrish, either opinion, zariya b'charish mishvius mishari. It doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't be allowed. How can we understand our Mishnah? It doesn't make sense. How are you able to do this on shvius? Now, l'chayra, this is a prohibition of plowing and planting on Shemitah. So, Rabbi, you're right, but our situation is b'shvius b'zman hazeh. We're talking about shvius nowadays, in which Rashi says is the Rabbanan. It only has rabbinical law. The requirement of Shemitah nowadays is not midaraisa. Rabbi he decided. Rabbi Omer is zedvar Shemitah. Shamait. So why does it say the word Shemitah twice? It's saying there's actually two forms of Shemitah. Acha Shemitah's karka, Acha Shemitah's ksofim. So there's a shmita of the land. They're supposed to let the land remain. And also there's shmitas ksafim, that if a person has a loan, so there's a din of yigos, you're not allowed to like press the individual, and if you have a loan, you're not, it's it. The loan is misham. You no longer collect. So the fact that they're linked together must be the dinim are the same. The bizman sheyat mishamid karka to mishamid ksafim. When there's a din of shmitas karka, is a din of shmitas ksafim. Bizman sheyat mishamid karka yat mishamid ksafim. However, when there's no din of shmitas karka, there's no din of shmitas ksafim either. So they're linked together. Says Rashi, Mechlal dikazman. Shalom Shamit Karka. This is a Bizman Azeh. It must be, it's coming to tell there must be a time in which this din does not apply, Midaraisa, which is Bizman Azeh, which is nowadays. And therefore, because of that, that's the reason why we're lenient on Shemitah to be able to do to the watering, even though you can say, it's Zareh, how could you do this on Shemitah? You're not supposed to do that. But again, because Shemitah, according to the Sheet, is only din to Rabbanan, so therefore we're Mekel. Fine. Yatam Mishamik Ksafim. Bizman Yatam Mishamik Karki, Yatam Mishamik Ksafim. Rabbi Omer, Kafil Tem Rabbanan. So that's one answer. That Shemitah is the Rabbanan. Or you can say really like the Rabbanan, which Shemitah is the Raisa. So if Shemitah is the Raisa, how would our Mishnah allow it? So your answer is Avos Aser Rachmana. The only thing that the Torah says you're not allowed to do in Shemitah are like the Avos Malachos, like on Shabbos is the Lamatas Malachos, as we continue to Gimel Manaf. Toldais Aser Rachmana. However, when it comes to Toldais, says Rashi, you could go in Mashkez Royim, like watering seeds, Shol Hayim Mishkan. That's not something which is part of the Lamatas Malachos in the Mishkan. Aser Rachmana. That's not something which is Aser when it comes to Shemitah. Lo Aser Rachman. L'chsev v'Shana Hashvius Shabbos Shabbaton Yel Aretz Sadcha Lotiz v'Goymer. So Michti Zmira Mechlal Zriya Ubetzira is Mechlal Katzira. L'chayra, all these things are linked. Pruning is a form of planting, and Betzira is also a form of like harvesting. So my hilchasa kasvinhu rachmana. So why does it mention it? Well, remember the Hani told us machayev achranyasa lo machayev. It's saying that only those that are so stipulated, those told us it's usher to do on Chol HaMoed, on Shemitah rather. However, when it comes to any other toldos, like watering the fields, so that's not something in which is usher, and therefore you're not machayev for it, and therefore we allow you to do this on Shemitah. Okay, we're going to stop here. Let's see a couple questions. TA21. B'man nechlaku hatanoim mashkin beis habal b'moyed v'b'ma hatzad l'aser hama'ayin shiotza b'tchila. Okay, so ishari harvacha olo. That's the question because beis habal is harvacha. And also, Chashin and Dimasil and Pule. We said that as we said, you would maybe think of Mayan Shiatsa B'Tchila because it may fall, so that could be more problematic. We are lenient on nonetheless. Also, question 2. Mashkin Besa Shlachim Meshvias. Madua in Beza Iser Diraisa Mishim Zereo Chayrish. 2 answers. Either because Shvias Bizman Zeh, according to Rabbi, which is only done Durabanan, or the Toldos Lo Aser Rachmana. The Aser Zmira B'Tzira, only that is Aser, but nothing else. Okay, TB 22. Ketzad Hatiru Lahashkos Beis Hashlachim B'Shvias. How do we allow it? V'hari Havi Chayrish Oizred Iser Midaraisa. Exact same question as we just saw. So again, either it's because it's Shvius Bizman says the Rabbanan, and Milstab say that we allow, or because it's told us like mashke, like watering the seeds, is not an Isser Deraisa, and therefore Milsa, which is a Hefsid, the Rabbanan are Mekel Adkam.